Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the RENNSPORT Community League Season 3, here in Episode 2 at Daytona Motor Speedway. We are back in the United States this season, and we are looking forward to a pretty good race. I think we have a lot of the big names we've seen last week in Jeddah. Oh, 2 weeks ago in Jeddah, by mistake. But one name you all will recognize from those streams is Tim Ireland, because he's here with me in the booth today.
Hello, Lino. How are you today?
I mean, my standard answer for that would be alive, but I'm pretty good right now, I think. And yeah, as said, today in Daytona, a track that has delivered many great races, many great finishes, lots of action, and whatever you want to call it. We are currently spectating Dennis Hines, the winner of last time in Jeddah, in what was an absolutely amazing race, wasn't it?
It was a really nice race. It's good to see some really cool races going on.
I mean, there was so much action throughout the grid. We had multiple packs of racing, of course. In the end, it was decided by strategy, but more than by pure race pace. But yeah, it was. I couldn't really believe it after the race. I'm looking forward to this one. And of course, Jeddah high-speed track, but Daytona is still very much high-speed, and you have more of a slipstream fight over here, with those long banked turns. Ideal to make a move into either turn 1, to the bus stop, to your liking.
Yeah, it's going to be a very different type of race, I think, today. There's going to be a bit more strategy involved with people slipstreaming, like you said. So, yeah, I'm hoping for some really nice close racing going on. I'm not sure if Dennis Hines will have it quite as all his own way like he did in Jeddah.
Yeah, I mean, the points, of course, reflecting the finishing positions of last race, with this man Dennis Hines winning. I mean, he has won both races we had so far, because he also won the GT4 RCE. Followed by Ladner Lunio, who's also here today. Benauda is back, Thunder's back, Zahir is back. So the top 6 in points, all in this race to fight it out. And I think Alizar is actually on top of the timing sheet at the moment. He comes into the bus stop right now. So, yeah, will be very interesting. Also, Eric Häusler is currently down in 11th. Didn't have the best race in Jeddah, but I mean, we definitely know what he can do. He's one of the guys to look out for, definitely.
Yeah, I think he was involved in some of the early race shenanigans that went on, but I'd expect to see him further up the field today. Definitely, as long as he can keep it clean in turn 1, I think that's going to be the big nail biting moment.
I'm right now watching Dominic Lala, and I'm a bit surprised that we see him in the DreamHack livery. To be fair, we usually use the Diamond Founders livery. I mean, I really like the DreamHack one as well, but I just don't associate it with Dominic Ladler. But nice change of color, I guess. But this is also the car he fought me when we first met in RENNSPORT. It was here at Daytona. We had a pretty nice fight. And both in the DreamHack cars, which at that time were quite rare as well. But long time ago. 1 year ago, probably, at this stage already.
It seems to be one of the liveries that's kind of stood the test of time. I mean, new liveries have kind of come and gone, but the DreamHack one always seems to be one of the favorite ones that gets pulled out. And rightly so, it's very pretty.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. I really like it.
We all like a yellow and green Porsche, don't we?
Now, if you say it like that, yeah, it makes sense. But it could also be yellow and blue or whatever. I would still like it.
Yeah.
Probably. But yeah, let's do away with the standings and look at the current qualifying results. And we see Meron Benauda has taken the top spot. from Alizar here, one of the two Mercedes we have here today, followed by Ladla Schrade, who's a new driver to this race. Haven't seen him yet, but he seems to make a good first impression, as Dennis Heinz is now slotting in second behind Benauda. Bräuniger also on sixth. Bräuniger seems to be a very good qualifier. He always seems to start in a very good position for the race. Just typically a bit of bad luck and, let's say, mismanagement at times in the races is kind of forcing him down the field. But in terms of qualifying, he's really one to reckon with.
Yeah, I don't think he's quite hit his racing stride just yet. But when he does, I think he's going to be a fairly fearsome opponent from what we've seen on the track so far.
Sector 1, 3/10 down. It's already a good start for him. In 8th, Lukas Bender. He's now back behind the wheel, which is nice to see. And he's pretty much the opposite, I'd reckon. He's solid in qualifying, but he usually excels in the race. So let's see what he can do today. He's currently in 8th, but maybe he can improve on the time a bit more. But we are also waiting for the likes of Thunder and Lunio to set lap times.
Yeah, seems to be a few people further down the field having trouble stringing together a valid lap right now, but I'm sure it'll mix things up once the likes of Thunder get his act together and do green sectors.
Of course, if you want to follow the lifetime, you can always do so in the app. Just go to Contests, League, scroll all the way down to RCL Season 3 and look for Daytona. And then you can see best laps, live track position and all that kind of stuff. Eighteen cars here on track today.
Yeah, we've got a good solid field. There's a good mix of abilities as well, I think. We've got some of the quicker guys, and some of the slower guys as well, which hopefully they can have a nice fight amongst themselves and everyone can have a good entertaining race from it.
Meanwhile, Lukas Bender improved his lap time. Took back 8th after being overtaken by Leon Schampach.
Dennis Heinz and Ali Zahir on very similar lap times. They're pretty close together right now.
I mean, overall, the drivers seem to be pretty much close in groups of two. Of course, Maron Benauda having a bit of an edge here right now. But Dennis Heinz is on a 1:44.406. Ali Zahir is only 25 thousandths behind. And then Dominik Ladler and Eric Häusler are also only 1/100th of a second separated between each other. I mean, these two also had a lot of fighting going on last time around. As Dennis Heinz comes across the line, doesn't improve this time around though. Philipp Schrade is on a good lap though. He might jump the two Porsches in front of him. Let's see what he can do coming out of the final banking, it seems. No, it's the run to... Yeah, it's the run to the start-finish line. I wasn't mistaken. And it's a 44.592, and that puts him in 4th in front of Ladler and Häusler. Not quite past the Mercedes of Ali Zahir, who's looking very strong right now. He was very unlucky in Jeddah last time around. If you remember back, the collisions at the start, the qualifying that didn't quite pan out.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mess. But they kind of cleaned it up and they had a good race towards the end of the race between them, which was... It was okay. It was...
I mean, Ali Zahir definitely redeemed himself last week, if you think back to
yes, for sure.
And it was also, of course, at Jeddah, so he kind of got redemption at Jeddah for what happened at Jeddah. Meanwhile, Joachim Thunder has improved to 8th. Better of the two Audis in the grid. But let's see if we can improve a bit further. Maybe jump the two BMWs in front of him. But he's aborting his lap. Bräuniger in 7th, Schampach in 8th. So now, seeing the qualifying results, it is very close up top. Only one, not even 1.5 tenths separating Benauder and Dennis Heinz. And Dennis Heinz is actually on a personal best in the first sector. Will we see a different pole setter close to the end of the session?
He's very much reduced his best time over the last few laps, so he's definitely on a bit of a charger right now.
Sector 2 time should be inbound very soon after the bus stop. Of course, has to watch out to not invalidate the lap. It's still 400th in the negatives. As long as he had a good enough run out of the bus stop and keep the speed up through the banking, he can maybe dethrone Maron Benauder for pole, and he has to abort the lap, so maybe he invalidated it on the run through bus stop.
Maybe he was taking a lot of curb. I saw that, but I wasn't really sure if it invalidated or not.
Maybe he also wants to start in P2. P2 starting on the outside.
It is a good, clean place to start at Daytona. You get a lot of people chancing it down the inside into T1, and sometimes it feels like being on the left-hand side is not a good thing. Whereas at least if you're on the right, you've got plenty of space to avoid things.
Very much so. Now that, I mean, qualifying is over. No, actually it is over. Not pretty much, it is over. Who are you going with for your pick for this race?
I'm bearing in mind I seem to have a very good record of jinxing people. I'm going to go with Ali Zahir for this one. I think he's going to show us some magic.
So,
Weren't expecting that, were you?
I mean, he is a very solid pick. He's starting in P3. That's a very good starting position. So, yeah. I wouldn't disagree with you there.
But you've got to make your own pick now, Lino. You can't just pick mine.
Ah, well. To be honest, I think Dennis Heinz might be able to make it 2-2 today. Benauder is very fast. He's beaten Dennis Heinz in qualifying, but the gap is so small. And Dennis Heinz has shown in the last two races how strategically he can win a race and how good he is in working with the slipstream. So I'm gonna say Dennis Heinz.
Fair enough. He is a very solid pick.
But I mean, Benauder is of course also very strong. As soon as he can break the slipstream, I think there's nothing in the way of him winning this race. But well, shaking off a Dennis Heinz is, at least what we've seen from Jeddah, a hard task. A big thing to ask for.
Yeah, he's a very consistent driver, and he clearly knows his limits. Hold on a second. I've just got to do a bit of...
Meanwhile, we have 6 Porsches in the top 7. So it's looking good for the manufacturer from Stuttgart. As the safety car pulls into the pit lane. And Meron Bernauda leads him, and it seems like Dennis Heinz had a very bad start there. Alizar trying to look down the inside, exactly what you mentioned before. Can he make a move down the inside? And what's... I think that's a 7 car. Oh, and contact Alizar here, and I think that might be Dennis Heinz in a collision there involved. Also the 12 car.
Trying to take out both our picks in one incident there.
Well, that's next level strategies, but it's now Dominic Ladler hunting down Bernauda. And if you think Dennis Heinz is a lot of pressure to be put under, well, you've not been pressured by Dominic Ladler so far. But let's take a look. How is it looking further down the grid? Of course, this has now shaken up the order quite a lot. Again, very bad luck at the start for Alizar here. Damage for Dennis Heinz on the front right. Let's check on the Lebanese driver. The front seems to be quite good. He got a hit on the rear right though. And oh, big damage to the rear of that Mercedes. But here comes Dominic Ladler around the outside in the bus stop. Bernauda braking later. Will it sacrifice his exit speed though? Schrader also with big damage after qualifying so well. Here comes Ladler though around the outside now. High up the banking. Side by side into turn 1. Ladler around the outside. Bernauda again late on the brakes. Ladler going the right way, trying to prioritize the exit here. But it's again the Frenchman that comes up on top. Meanwhile, Dennis Heinz under pressure from Häusler and Lunio, who's made a rocket start. Do you remember where Lunio has started from?
He started from 3rd. No, that was Zahir. Lunio was quite far down. I don't think he got a very good qualifying session, and I think he was about 11th.
I don't think he even got a qualifying lap in, to be honest. But yeah, something along the lines of 11th. Definitely a big jump to be now up in 6th. So he really capitalized. But again, Ladler and Bernauda side by side now entering the oval, the tri-oval. Bernauda with the better exit though, but now Ladler in the slipstream. It's a surprise that none of us had Ladler on their list. But now it's Ladler taking over the lead in the second round of the RENNSPORT Community League Season 3. He is the 2-time champion.
Justice for Ladler.
But also Bräuniger in 3rd. So he's definitely turned up the game. This time it's Bernauda on the attack, braking very late, going around the outside. Can Ladler keep it pinned to the inside, get a better exit? And again, Mervin Bernauda being incredibly strong into turn 1, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He's definitely got a fairly decent right foot.
Oh, Dominic Ladler braking very late. Trying to dive back into the horseshoe. And Bräuniger also under pressure from Dennis Heinz, who's trying to reclaim back 3rd position. Just a question of how much the broken front right arrow of Dennis Heinz is hurting his car. It's Dominic Ladler going for it into the bus stop. Oh, and Dominic Ladler into the wall. Touched Benauda there on the rear right quarter panel. And drifted into the wall. Big damage to the front right of his car there. Dropped down to 7th. I'm not sure there was anything wrong. Also, Bräuniger's gone around exiting the bus stop as it seems.
Grass here a bit slippy at Daytona and him doing a bit of a donut, trying to get back on track.
Not quite sure what happened there. But this race is definitely not lacking action. Now which car is it? Seems like to be the 12 car of Schrade coming out of the pits in behind Benauda. But Heinz is able to slip it through with a big drift there. Exiting the first horseshoe. But Alizai also recovered to 7th. This race definitely not lacking action in any way here. Meanwhile, Joachim Thunder in 9th also has damage to the front right. Maybe did you see what happened there to him?
I know he had a few incidents coming up through the field. He seemed to have a few off-track moments. I'm assuming he either had contact with a barrier or contact with another car. But he's not had a good race so far.
A man who had a good race so far and whose car is looking pretty clean. Lucas Bender following Eric Häusler. And now in the slipstream, maybe up for a move into turn 1. Häusler going around the long way. Leaving the gap open for Lucas Bender to slip through. He's not really fighting this one out. And that's Lucas Bender up into 4th. But Dennis Heinz is hunting down Maron Benauda. So we are back to the front row we had at the start of the race.
Adrian Luneau just a little bit out of touch as far as slipstream is concerned, but if Heinz and Benauda start fighting, then that gap will pretty quickly close up.
I mean, Dennis Heinz is now in pretty much prime slipstreaming position. Benauda defending to the inside. Dennis Heinz going even further to the inside. And now side by side through the bus stop. This can't go right, can it?
Ooh, that came off a lot better than I thought it was going to do for a minute there.
I mean, it took quite a lot of bravery from both, but also Maron Benauda basically exiting out of the fight. Which, I mean, seeing as how some other fights have ended, apparently, maybe the better choice in the long run. I mean, we are only 9 minutes into a 45-minute race.
Yeah, there's a lot of time to sort this out. They don't need to be doing too risky moves at this stage.
Eric Häusler into the back of Lucas Bender. And collecting Alizai, who's again the unlucky. I mean,
I'm
look
sorry,
at his car.
I cursed you. I'm sorry.
Maybe I shouldn't ask you the next time around. Or I should name a different driver. But a great demonstration of the technical components underneath the carbon shell of that AMG. I don't want to drive that car now.
No, that would not be a joy to drive as it is. I suppose technically it's still got a diffuser, but it's not going to be pretty to drive.
I mean, technically it still has a wing, it's just not attached on one end. But, yeah, he's the unfortunate demonstrator of the damage model that we have in this game. So... But he's still running in 6th, and we still have the pit stops coming up, so if the car isn't handling too bad, maybe he can make it through. Back some good points. I mean, his opposition, Joachim Thunder down in 10th. Bräuniger and Häusler also behind him. Dominik Ladler only one position in front of him. I mean, of course, up front it's Dennis Heinz. But he couldn't quite shake Bernauder, could he?
Not quite, no. Bernauder's slowly creeping back into the slipstream zone. So I'll expect this battle to last a little bit longer just yet.
I mean, Bernauder's probably also thinking, you're not gonna win this one that easy.
Down in 8th and 9th position, we just had the battle to see which livery is best. Is it the diamond livery or the platinum livery for the BMW M4? But it seems like the platinum livery won out. Which I'm sure you'll be pleased of.
Not biased in any form here, but... Of course, if you buy the diamond pack, you will also get the platinum liveries. But yeah, I mean, especially in combination, these two look so good. I know it sounds like advertisement and stuff, but I genuinely like them. So if you ever find me in an online race, which sometimes I do, and it's a GT3 or the GT3X Porsche, you will most likely see this livery here on the car of Enrico Schwigo Bräuniger. Just
Am I right
on
in
an Audi.
We've got no EWC liveries here today.
I think Pierre Kolbeck used one.
Oh, he might have done. You're right.
But of course, if you collected the drops at the EWC event, you've got yourself a fancy new livery. In gold, what is it, platinum, silver, something like that, and again gold.
Kind of black and gold, isn't it? Which I think was kind of the EWC colours.
So Eric Häusler comes into the pits. Just had to interrupt you there. The first one to come into the pits.
Fine. Interrupt away. We have had a couple of pit stops. Not in a kind of regular pit stop fashion. I know earlier we were talking about Pierre Kolbeck, and he had a big incident in lap 1 and ended up crawling back to the pits without his rear wing. So he's had to have some pretty hasty repairs.
Driving without a rear wing, we have seen that before. Maybe a certain Remco Mayer wants to remind
It could have been an interesting technique with it being Daytona, try to really lose that downforce for the fast sections, but I don't think it was working out for him.
I mean, at least in Sector 1, it's not gonna really help you in the way that you would like it to help you. So Häusler came out right with the Audi of Michael G. Was able to return in front and didn't repair damage, so he still has that gaping hole on the front left. So must have had a bigger impact there. He was, of course, in that spin with Lukas Bender and then being collected by Ali Zahir, whose lap times of course, due to the damage, a bit slower, but for the amount of damage that he has, I think that's still not too bad.
Yeah, there's been some interesting weight-saving tactics going on at the beginning of the race. I'm sure when it comes to the pit stops, it'll probably not pay off for them.
Gap between Heinz and Bernardo stays at roughly a second. Well,
Yeah,
I say roughly.
Well, Bernardo's not been closing it up quite as much as I thought he would do. He maybe needs to get an extra couple of tenths, and then the slipstream will really start to help him drag him up to Dennis Heights.
I mean, the good thing about Daytona, especially racing Rise, is that you don't really need to worry about dirty air. Since the only part where you really need that downforce in the GT3, where dirty air can hinder you, is the bus stop. Of course, it's in one of the most crucial places of the lap time. But even if you lose out a bit due to dirty air, you will regain that quite quickly comparatively to a different track.
Yeah, as long as you're sensible into the beginning of the bus stop and try and maximize your exit more than the entry into it, you can do okay.
There in the background we could see the EWC livery actually. Ali Zayas in the pits. See if he repairs the damage or not.
I can't see a situation where he'd want to not repair the damage at this stage of the race. I'm not sure I'd like to drive that AMG for the next 28 minutes.
As we see the EWC livery there on Pierre Colbeck's car as he's being lapped by Lucas Bender.
Pierre Colbeck had a lap down because of the damage he got earlier. I was saying that before.
But I don't think he has to pit, does he?
I don't know, to be honest. I'll try and find out for you.
Luckily for Alizai, he's still coming out on the lead lap. So we have quite a few people being already through their pit stops. So might be quite interesting since some of them seem quite out of the picture for now, but now in clean air, or maybe with the help of a second car, this might be a good position to be in. As Michael G is also into the pits. So are a few other cars, Dominic Leitner and Eric Häusler. Häusler, of course, already have been in the pits, but let's see where he will come out comparatively to Dominic Leitner. So see the 7 car of Bräuniger in the pits on our mini-map on the top right. So Häusler now comes through the start-finish gate. There we see Ladler in the green and yellow Porsche. But he comes out quite in front of Eric Häusler. But it's not as big of a gap as I would have thought.
He's got Michael G ahead of him, who's on a different lap right now, so he shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Bernardo starting to drift now as well. You also see the RENNSPORT blimp flying across the midfield there.
Bernardo seemed to have a bad lap a couple of laps ago because he seemed to lose about half a second quite quickly. A bit unfortunate after all the effort he's put into closing the gap.
You know, when I used to race a lot more at Daytona, back then before I became the one talking about drivers, I was driving mostly in race room before I went to RENNSPORT. And at some stage they added airplanes on the airfield right next to the track. For those who know Daytona, they know there's an airfield right next to the track. A big one, big airport. And they added planes landing and taking off. And stuff like that, especially in the longer 2.4-hour races, as Marion Bernauda comes into the pits, as Dennis Hines stays out for another one. It just kept me busy in a way, because every time there was a plane, I was like, oh, there's a plane, look at it. I mean, you have a lot of time on the bangings, right? So I really like those little details. Did Marion Bernauda just come through for a drive-through?
He did, and he just got another drive-through for speeding. So he's decided to call it a day, I think.
So Marion Bernauda is out of this race.
Yeah, there's a similar situation in a way at Donington Park, being British, one of my favourite circuits, clearly. It has a runway that's kind of in line with the start-finish straight. So you can, only for smaller aircraft, but you can quite often see smaller aircraft coming into land and taking off directly in line with the start-finish straight, which is always entertaining.
And apparently there was again an issue with the pit box for Marion Bernauda. Seen that last week with a different driver. Joachim Thunder right now though, running in third place. Adrian Lunio is running in second. Both, I mean, of course, Thunder was involved in a bit of action, but pretty much driving quiet races here. Lucas Bender, after his pit stop, he's out in fourth. The big gap to Bräuniger behind.
Lucas Bender is the highest placed driver who's already pitted. The top three are all getting pretty lean on fuel right now, so they're going to have to be coming in soon.
I mean, of course, it's a big shame for Marion Bernauda after driving such a good race. Could have probably won this race.
Yeah, for sure. He was doing really good. He was only... it only would have taken Dennis Hines to have a bit of an iffy pit stop, and he would have been right up there.
See if Dennis Hines will come in this lap or if he decides to go for another one.
I think he can maybe squeak another lap out if he really wants to. But I don't know whether he really wants to risk it.
Indeed, he's staying out for another one.
He has got a purple sector 1 and 2, so maybe just wanted that fastest lap.
So does Lunia, but he also got a massive tow there from Michael G in the Audi. Because if you can, you want to stay out and use that one.
I think Yok and Thunder will be coming in this lap, though.
Would be very tight on fuel to stay out for another one. The Audi being quite thirsty. Of course, 4 more cylinders than the Porsche that have to be fed. But we'll promote Lukas Bender onto the podium positions. Before the race, he said easy win. So let's see. But the trajectory so far isn't looking bad for him in this race. So I think I've seen Michael G having quite the drift there entering the oval.
Yeah, I think he had a bit of a moment coming into the bus stop last lap, so he's probably got fairly toasty tyres right now.
Joachim Thunder coming out in 5th though, and in front of Dominic Ladler, surprisingly enough. So he made a lot of stuff right in this race, especially after the first few laps.
Dennis Heinz coming into the pits now.
Let's see, where's Lukas Bender? He's now in the second banking. So basically NASCAR's turn 2 and 3 towards the bus stop. Dennis Heinz is rolling out of the pits again.
Adrian Luna getting quite a lot of added time there for being misaligned with the pit box.
Because Ben actually getting a bit of help there from his diamond livery colleague. Might not flow as well, but still. Leon Stampach, who is a bit... Oh, and right as I said, he's locking his rear axle, sending him into the spin, into the horseshoe. Just want to say it is a good slipstream there for Lukas Bender, but maybe I've spoken too early.
The gap's closed up quite a lot between Bender and Luna, being only 4 seconds now, but I think on pure pace, Luna could have it. His best lap is quite a bit quicker than Bender's.
It's so many different leaders this race, in a way.
Yeah, considering the gaps at the front as they are now, there was a lot of swapping around early on.
I mean, also this man who's now back in 6th, he led this race after, I think, 5 laps. And Adrian Lunier has a drive-through, doesn't he? Because he's come back into the pits. Lukas Bender has taken over 2nd place from the Frenchman. And now maybe Bräuniger can slip it through as well.
Yeah, I'd not spotted that one. Yeah, seems to have got a drive through for track limits somewhere along the lines.
Or did he maybe speed in the pit lane last time around?
Yes, he did actually. Looking at the incident log, he got a drive through due to speeding in the pit lane.
Well, that kind of hampered his progress in a way, but I mean, he's still in 3rd after starting 13th.
Yeah, it's definitely not a bad position, considering where he started. He's still got a little bit of damage to the front left of that Porsche, but he's opted not to fix it.
Lots of cars damage on the front right specifically. I mean, now that everybody kind of settled into the rhythm and we are through the pit stop cycle. I'm sorry, that was me. Maybe we can take a look at what is coming up, because the Founders League, this one, we will go into Season 2 next week, since we finished off last week with the 2.4 hours of the Nordschleife, which was a very good event. If you've missed it, you can rewatch it on the Krystall Production channel or for a few more days here on Twitch. And we are up for Season 2, bound to start next Friday. And we will kick things off with the GT3X Porsche, the Porsche 911 RENNSPORT on the Nordschleife for a 60-minute race, followed by GT4s, the Praga making its debut in the Founders League. And then we will go back to GT3s for a 250-kilometer race, which is roughly 90 minutes, 75 to 90 minutes, depending on the race pace. So, yeah, just asking you again, what are you most excited for in this season?
I mean, I love GT3 cars, so I'm never going to be upset about seeing a 90-minute GT3 race. I know the GT4s have been having a lot of fun recently in the community events, but I think I'm most excited to see what the Pragas do at Nordschleife, to be honest. I think that's going to be a combo that not many people have tried, so it's going to have a lot of unknowns in it.
I mean, it's definitely very different. It's usually a short sprint car, but I mean, there are a few championships that pretty much prove the difference between what a sprint car should be and what a sprint car actually is. Yeah, it would be very interesting, I think, as you say.
People aren't going to know how many laps they can do on the fuel, how the tires are going to hold up. I think there's going to be a lot of car-based questions to be answered, but when that race is run.
All we know, next week with the 911 RENNSPORT, one of the cars I absolutely love. It's basically a GT2 car with the downforce of a GT3 in terms of how it feels to drive.
It's a very fun car to drive.
So make sure not to miss it. But so you won't miss more of the racing action. We will go back to it. And in terms of what's happened, Dominic Lala has moved past Joachim Thunder, who's ran into a little whoopsie, let's say, in the bus stop chicane. Leon Schampach also got caught out by it, but apart from that, it seems to be going all quite right for the man in first place, for Dennis Heinz, the winner of last time. Trying to make it 2 for 2 and definitely trying to make a run for the championship.
You wouldn't bet money against him right now with 11 minutes to go and 30 seconds lead, for sure.
But we've seen how fast things can change.
He's been a very consistent driver whenever he's been on track so far.
Oh, as he gets onto the grid. Oh, big drift there. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't put money on the line here. But yeah, it's definitely looking all quite right for him. But with Bender and Looney, we definitely have two drivers who can show how much you can move up the field by keeping your nose clean. And
Yeah,
Looney
for sure.
even had the drive-through penalty. He would have been in P2 comfortably, but yeah, speeding in Daytona isn't that hard to do. You brake from, 260 kph down to 90 in the shortest distance possible.
Yeah, it's a very easy one to overshoot the entry, and the exit's a very odd one because you kind of have to brake a little bit before the left-hand kink in the pit lane, and you really want to just floor it out of there, but the pit finish line is just after the corner, so you need to just hold off a little bit before you hit the pit limiter button.
I mean, yeah, it's... Oh, as Lunio demonstrates the drifting potential of the 911 GT3R. But, yeah, as you say, it's a very odd exit as well for the speed limit. And especially, you want to release, since the pit stop is so long, the pit lane is so agonizingly long. You want to disable pit limiter as soon as possible, but you just have to wait, and then you maybe get impatient and just release ever so slightly too early. And that's a drive-through penalty.
At least it's a bit of a faster pit lane than some of the other ones. I think it's 90 kph rather than 60 kph.
It is, but it's still, I mean, when you can usually drive past the pits at 270 kph.
Yeah. I was just trying to say that it could be worse.
But in all fairness, not much good. I think the only pit lanes that are even more painful are pit lanes like Sebring, Watkins Glen.
The full endurance pit lane at Spa, that's got to be the king of bad pit lanes.
That's gotta be the king. I mean, isn't it even like 50 kph in the endurance version or something? I think they lowered the speed limit there as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, these pit lanes are so long, you drive by at flat out speeds. But Daytona is in that way very pit. But I also really like it with the exit, having the wall and separation.
Oh, it's good. I mean, it can be a bit iffy sometimes because you do come out into the racing line essentially. But at least when you do that, it gives like a clear line for anybody still coming past on track to kind of take the inside lane into International Horseshoe.
Yeah, and it's also very exciting if you have two cars close on proximity exiting the pit lane and on track. It kind of makes it easier to merge because you have so much time to prepare for it. On other pit lanes, you kind of just get spat out onto the track and have to find your spot, but here you kind of get merged into it a lot more.
It's a really good multi-class track. I know it can seem a bit simplistic when you just look at the map, but it is a very good track for multi-class racing specifically. And I really enjoyed. I'm surprised by how much I enjoy driving Daytona.
I mean, many people do, I think, and for good reasons. I mean, it's also a huge variety in terms of what you encounter on this track. Because even though for example, the section we enter here, when we go back onto the banking, back onto the oval, it's so bumpy, it almost feels like a completely different track.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can take that corner as well. So it opens up quite a lot of opportunities.
I mean, talking about tracks and strength and weaknesses, maybe we can take a look at what comes next. And again, it was the wrong one. Because next up will be Hockenheim, one of the tracks we haven't featured in Season 2, has featured twice in Season 1 though. And had definitely two very exciting races to be featured with. Yeah, Hockenheim is very different. I think it might be the first, let's say, more normal racetrack compared to Jeddah and Daytona, which are both pretty much temples of speed. Much more
Yeah, true.
technical and all that, but yeah, very much a good racing track just in itself. You said it, Daytona is maybe one of the best multi-class tracks. Hockenheim, I'd argue, is one of the best for single-class racing.
It's a really nice track. I really enjoyed Hockenheim as well, for very different reasons, obviously. But I think it's got good combinations of corners, and you've really got to concentrate. It's one of those tracks which is willing to kick back if you're not paying attention.
It's definitely not as calm as it may seem on the surface. I mean, it
Yeah,
all looks quite smooth, and you have quite the runoff at turns, but I mean, the curbs can really bite. They are quite sharp, especially if you come back from off the track onto them.
the first sector, possibly two sectors, like kind of lull you a bit into thinking it's a fairly simple track. There's big sweeping corners and then into sharp corners, which all makes sense in your little racer brain. But then the third sector is all kind of medium speed corners that you've really got to kind of dance on the pedals to work your way through. And surprisingly good for a cheeky overtaking maneuver.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time we see a 3 right into the hairpin, so. But while we are getting close to the end of the race, with Dennis Heinz separated by approximately 2 laps from finishing this race, the gaps from Lunio, Breuninger and Lala have come down to 1.5 seconds each. So is this maybe coming close to a change in position near the end of the race?
I think as long as Lunio can keep his head, he should be okay. But the nerves are going to be hitting a bit, especially after getting that drive-through penalty earlier on. He's probably a bit distracted. So hopefully he can keep his concentration where it needs to be right now and not worry about it too much just for another couple of laps. And of course, Ladler seems to be closing the gap there, coming into the bus stop. So I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of things for the number 7 car to worry about shortly. He's got to remember there is a car behind him as well as one in front of him.
I mean, one of the drivers that definitely doesn't have to worry about anything at the moment except for just finishing this race is Dennis Heinz. He will have to do another lap. But also Lukas Bender. I mean, he's in second after starting down in 8th, 9th. So he just ran through the field without much drama. Eric Häusler spun on his own behalf behind him, but that's nothing that Lukas Bender could have prevented. But he's running in second and not with, well, someone too close behind him. He's pretty much comfortable in that position. But Dominik Lala only 8/10 behind Breuninger.
Absolutely wrecking that gap coming through the Le Mans chicane, the Le Mans bus stop there. He's only got one lap left to make a move.
Well, if he doesn't move now, he has to watch out for Bräuninger not being able to reclaim the position. We've seen that quite a couple of times, especially if you follow the ESW R1. ESL R1, not ESW. EWC. But ESL R1 or EWC. But he's so close behind. But Dennis Heinz just came through the bus stop for the final time. On the final banking, he will reclaim the throne once again, winning his second race and his second start in the RENNSPORT Community League, extending his lead in the championship. Congratulations to Dennis Heinz for another victory, and it will be, I mean, we can wait for the bus stop before we jinx it, but I'm pretty sure that Lukas Bender is gonna take it safe and finish this race in P2. A very deserved finish here for the German. But in behind, Adrian Lunio, I think he's quite safe with the cars behind, but between those two, nothing is safe. Look how much more pinned Lala can keep his car, and he's now going to the inside on the banking with more speed than the BMW. BMW going high up the banking, trying to get back into the slipstream and maybe go for it at the line. Has more speed. It will be a photo finish.
Oh, this is going
Who's got it? Who's got it? It's Ladler.
Ladler got it on the line just.
By 6,000ths of a second, Dominic Ladler beats Enrico Schugo Bräuninger to the line. It was a very good move there from Bräuninger, though, to try to basically get a slingshot on the final attempt.
Yeah, I think he could have stayed in the slipstream for just a second longer. He would have had it there. But it was very close.
What has happened to Eric Häusler? He is suddenly slow. Alizaya has moved up into 8th, finishing this race with the car that didn't really quite want to finish. Eric Häusler, is he running out of fuel?
He is out of gas.
That would be such a big shame if it were to end like this. He's so close to the finish line.
And unfortunately, everyone else has finished. So even if they went round for another lap, they'd be ghosted and they couldn't push him over the line.
That's a DNF for Eric Häusler. Not even 100 meters from the finish line. What a finish. Congratulations to Heinz, Lunio, and of course to Bender, who isn't in the list anymore because he left the session quite early, which made me quite confused. But that photo finish between Dominic Ladler and Enrico Bräuninger. What a conclusion to this race.
There was a pretty epic last lap there. There was a lot of drama going on. But yeah, it was a good race to see. I think Heinz, although obviously won by quite a lot in the end, I think he was very lucky to have the race as easy as he did.
Yeah, very much so. It was a great race. I mean, lots of unforeseen things that happened. Let's say it like that. And might also be very interesting for the championship with the things that happened in this race. But one thing is for certain. Dennis Heinz seems to be the man to beat in Season 3.
Yeah, he seems to have taken your challenge to beat Dominic Ladler pretty seriously.
So, yeah, I think it's time for us to say goodbye. We will see you next week when the RENNSPORT Founders League will go into its second season, Friday 8 p.m. Of course, also the next RCE taking place. I think this will be one that Lunio will particularly like, where we go back to Daytona. in the Porsche Mission R, as he claims it, or he names it, the Electric Monster or Electric Beast, I think it was.
Yeah, I
So
think it's Electric Monster.
I'm looking forward to that. It's a very different kind of racing with those. Well, I mean, they really are monsters.
They are.
But yeah, any final words from you for today from the race?
No, it was a really good race. I enjoyed watching it. It was quality racing as always.
And with that said, we thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure to host it. And we see you next week. Until then, have a great time and goodbye.
Goodbye.